Hi, I'm Danny, and today I'm here with my favorite books of 2018. Normally this would be a hard list to narrow down, but most of the books I read this year were okay. Most of my reads were like 3-star ratings, so it really wasn't that hard to narrow this list down at all. These will be in no particular order, so there's no 10 until 1 is my favorite. This one is just all 10 books that I really enjoyed. So first we have Rhapsodic by Laura Thalassa. This is the first book in the Barkender series, and it is so good. If you enjoyed A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas, you have to read this one because it was so similar and yet so different at the same time. But every time I think of this book, I think of A Court of Mist and Fury. Every time I think of A Court of Mist and Fury, I think of this book. It was just so good. Our main character is Callie, and she is a siren who is being sexually abused by her stepfather, and then she accidentally ends up killing him before he can do it again, and then she's just panicking. What will she do with the body? And she remembers that seeing this card that her father had from the bargainer, who will give you anything you wish for, but he will have you repay that wish at a later date. But you never know what he's gonna ask for. It could be literally anything, and usually the price is even higher than what you asked for. So it just really depends. So the bargainer grants her wish and then sends her off to this magical school so she can learn how to use her siren abilities. And of course learn, the basic stuff that we learn in school already. And while she's there, he pops up every once in a while, and every time he does, Callie makes another wish, and he eventually not only has that one bargain, but she ends up having over like 300 beads on this bracelet he's given her. Normally he would just give a tattoo, like a little check mark, but Callie has made so many wishes that he literally made her a bracelet of beads. And then this is told in both present and past. So you flash back to like 7 to 8 years before when she was in school and they were friends, to the present, and you know that something happened between them and it made her very hesitant to trust him again. And the story was just a 5-star book. I love it, and I cannot wait to continue on with this series. And it was an independent author, so support. Next I have Catwoman Soul Stealer by Sarah J Maas. This is the second book, I believe, in the DC something series. The DC Icon series. It's actually the third book, I'm sorry. It's the third book in the DC Icon series. And this follows Catwoman, or Selina Kyle, from the time she is in her late teens until she's in about her early 20s. And she has come back to Gotham City after going away to this assassin school for quite a few years, and she comes back with this intent on doing something. And at first I thought the intentions might be kind of bad, but which I kind of expected, because if you know the Catwoman character, she's kind of an anti-hero. She's not a villain, but she's not a hero either. She's kind of like that morally gray character, and I've always loved her for that. And I really did enjoy this book. One of my favorite badass female characters written by my favorite author. What more could I have asked for? But yeah, I really did enjoy this one, and as only Sarah can do, she had me crying at the end. A few tears, not like complete bawling, but she got me. She got me. Next I have Manners and Mutiny by Gail Carriger. This is the 4th book in the Finishing School series, and it is the final book in the series. And it is definitely my favorite in the entire series. Normally, book 1 or book 2 in a series will be my favorite. This is one of the first times that the final book has been my favorite. And this follows Sophronia Terminic, who enters into this finishing school for young ladies of quality. And it isn't until she gets to the school that she finds out it's not just a normal finishing school. It is a finishing school to make future spies. And so, of course, once she finds this out, she's more than happy to go through the school. And the book 1 is when she enters the school and she's kind of like learning the basics, and then you continue with her throughout all her studies and all the little tiny missions that she goes through every year. Even while most of the teachers don't know, they know she's up to something, but they don't quite know what until like the end of the book, where she kind of reveals what she knows. And then I believe it's in book 2 or 3, where one of the teacher pretty much says, you know, you do a lot more than we think you do. We might have to keep an eye on you, and turns pretty much her entire class against her, although it does turn out to be a test to see what she will do without other people there to help her on her little missions. Can she be a lone agent, or would she be able to work within a group? But yeah, I really, really do enjoy this series. And I do know this is the prequel series, I believe, to her Soulless books. And I didn't know that when I entered this. I just knew it was a steampunk Victorian era spy book. And I really, really did enjoy it. And not only because this is where like the romance really truly does start. Like while you see her like, you know, being courted by other boys throughout other books, this is the one where like my main ship sort of happens, and I was afraid that it was not going to happen, because while you would see like little flirting through other books, it was never like anything serious, like kind of like playful flirting and banter between friends. And then it comes to full swing in this book, and I love it. It's very, very enjoyable. If you're looking for a short, quick steampunk Victorian era spy book, this is the series for you. I believe it goes on from about the time Sophronia is 12, and I believe she's 16 in this book. 16 or 15 in this book. Next I have Mask of Shadows by Lindsay Miller. I do have a non-spoiler review on this book, so I will put that in the description below. But this was a very hidden treasure that I found. It's a book that I have heard nobody here on BookTube read at the time I read it. I have heard 1 or 2 people's reviews now after I finished it. And this is about Sal? Yes, this is about Sal, who is a gender fluid character. It took me a while to get that, because one second I was like, wait, didn't they say he like 3 sentences ago, and now Sal's a she? I don't understand. So it took a minute, but I finally did get it. And this is about Sal, who hears that the Queen's opal has been murdered or killed, and they are now holding a competition for a new opal, and these 4 characters named after the rings that the Queen wears on her left hand. There's ruby, emerald, opal, and amethyst. So the competition is looking for a new opal, and so it is all these different people who are not only recommended, have proven some way to serve the country, like with Sal. She knows that her current employer, who runs like a band of thieves, is on the Queen's most wanted list, and so she kills him, chops off his hand as proof that she murdered him, and brings it to the competition, where she is let in. But of course they are given a very brief first test, like as soon as they enter the gate, and I'll let you read to find out what it is. At first I was kind of like, that's odd, and then once I saw that she passed, I'm like, I get it now. So this is about Sal, who enters into that assassin competition, and this is a very different assassin competition book. Like if you've read the Throne of Glass series and you wanted like more violence, more murder, that's what this is. The characters literally are killing each other off and passing all these other little tests throughout the competition, but there is a catch. You can murder each other off all you like, but the servants around the castle will be watching you. And if they tell the runners of the game that they saw you kill somebody, or they have proof that you murdered this person, you're disqualified from the competition. So it is definitely a awesome LGBTQ assassinating story. And this is book 1 in a duology. Book 2 I know is already out. I was going to read it like immediately when it came out, but it just kind of passed me by. But I will be reading it sometime soon. And like I said, this is great if you're looking for an assassin competition story where they are allowed to kill each other off. This is probably the book for you, and it's got an LGBTQ twist. Next I have Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. This is the biggest book I have ever read. It is like 1,008 pages, I think, and it is a hefty book. You could do weights with this book. But this is the final book in the Throne of Glass series, which I'm so sad to see end, but it was a beautiful, awesome, fantastic, badass sad final book of this amazing series. And while I do know in the World of Throne of Glass book that's coming out, I believe, next year, we do get snippets of what's happening with all these characters after the war and everything is over, and all of them are rebuilding and now ruling their territories and kingdoms. I can't wait to see that and to see what our characters are doing, who's gotten married, who's had kids, or what have you. So yeah, this is a fantastic book, and I can't tell you anything about this book because it is the final book in the series. The first book is Throne of Glass. Go on Goodreads, find out what it's about. It was amazing. And while in most of Sarah's books, I'm usually crying like at the end, this had me crying throughout the book at different parts. It was painful and beautiful and sweet and heartfelt and scary and thrilling, and it was great. Next I have Once Burned by Jeaniene Frost. This is the first book in the Night Prince series. This follows certain characters from the Night Huntress world. Well, the series is called the Night Huntress world, but there are like separate series throughout that one huge series. And so this is the Night Prince. It is kind of a spin-off of the Night Huntress series. And it follows Vlad, who, yes, is Vlad Tepes, Dracula, though he hates if you call him that. I think only Kat is ever allowed to call him that, and even then he still gets annoyed. And this follows him as he finds out about this girl who was struck by lightning when she was a kid, and while she can zap you with lightning in one hand, and if she touches you with her other hand, then she can see your past or possible future. So this is the first book, and I was so glad to read this because I loved Vlad from the Night Hunter series, and I was really, really looking forward to reading him in this one, and it was great, as all of Jeaniene Frost's books are. And I actually have number 2 on hold for me at the library right now, and I'm waiting for it to come in so that I can start the next one. Next I have Outtakes from the Grave. This is a bind-up of novellas and untold stories from the Night Huntress series. It's basically the author took all of her untold scenes and stories from the books, or things that she never even got to get put in the book because of pacing concerns, and alternate storylines, and put them in this book. She had so many, she made it one book, and it was great. I've read this like 3 times now, I think. I think I read it twice last year. And my favorite story is probably the final one, where it tells when Kat and Bones were having marital issues and whether or not Kat would be turned into a vampire. It is an alternate story to that, to where instead of them just both having that huge issue, which was just completely stupid, and not talking to each other about it, Bones actually lost his memory, and it goes on from there. And I really wish the story had gone with that story instead of the one that's in the book, because I much more enjoyed that one, and it made a whole lot more sense. Next I have A Toil and Trouble by Jessica Spotswood and Tessa Sharp, or edited by Jessica Spotswood and Tessa Sharp, but it has 15 different authors in this book. Some I've heard of, some I haven't, and I received this actually from NetGalley in return for an honest review, and I really loved it. It's such an empowering and painful and sad and inspiring story about women and different types of witchcraft and things that can happen to these girls, or even any girl, and could actually show them how they could be considered a witch, or maybe they might even actually have magical witchy powers. So there were different types of witches through this one. A few were told around like Salem witch trial times, where there was no magic. It was just like more modern remedies, but they saw it as witchcraft. So yeah. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. I definitely think you should recommend it. And I do have a long review for this one. Well, somewhat long. Probably the longest one I've ever posted. And as I said, I will link all reviews I have for any of these books in the description below. But yeah, it was beautiful. And each story was brief and quick. And sometimes I actually want to know where the story was going to go. Like there's one that tells you about a girl who had a drug problem, and she's now of course clean, but her family just won't seem to let it go. Anytime she goes out, they assume that she's gone out for drugs, and then it just kind of tells of her moving on with her life and kind of finally accepting that her family just will never believe that she's clean, and her just going on with her life. And there's another story in here about a goddess who determines who your soulmate is, but the girl who she determines, that guy is your soulmate, she's a lesbian. So yeah, you can see the problems with that. And so it just has different stories, both diverse and LGBTQ, and it's just a beautiful book. I definitely recommend you read it if you're looking for some nice witchy short books. But as I said, even though I knew they were going to be short, I found myself quite a few times wanting to know what happened next. Oh, and a trigger warning for sexual assault for one of these books. At least one that I remember. I think there might have been 2 or 3, but there's only one where you actually see it happen. Next, I have A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. This was just, it was fantastic. I heard that there was a TV show coming out with this book, and of course I wanted to read it before the TV show came out, only to finish it, try to go watch the TV show, and find out that it actually won't be where I am until about early to mid-January. So yeah, I could have held off on this one, but I'm so glad I didn't. I was kind of nervous going into it because I heard all the hype surrounding this book. People have been recommending it for years, and I've always seen like 4 or 5-star ratings, and I'm just like, ugh. Whenever I see ratings like that, depending on how much I like the book, my average is usually like a 3 or 3.5 star. But I really did enjoy this book so much, and I've actually ordered the next 2 books. That's how much I really enjoyed this. And if you know me, I'm that kind of person who will buy them as I go, or I will read them all from the library and then I will buy them all. Because I've found that if I buy book 1, 2, and 3, even though I might be halfway through book 1 and really love it, sometimes the ending of that book just disappoints me so much to where I don't want to read on, or I'm hesitant to read on. So yeah, but yeah, I love this so much that I was willing to take that risk. This is about Diana, who is a historian in the 15th to 16th century alchemy, and she finds this magical book that apparently all the other magical factions have been looking for, and it just shows you what happens to her from there. And there's witches, vampires, demons, and other things in here. Why am I blanking? I could have sworn witches, vampires, demons, a prophecy. It was just great. And Diana, as I said, she is a witch, but she refuses to use her powers ever since her parents passed away. And that is definitely explored in this. For a while, it went on for so long that I didn't think that they'd touch upon it until the next book. But they definitely did, and a whole lot more that I never expected. So I was right for a good chunk of the book. But then there were other things throughout this that, while I believed, I did not expect. Because there are certain things that happen in certain books where I'm just like, okay, where's this? It's coming out of nowhere. I can't believe this. And there was a tipping point where that started to happen. But then it was rectified as, oh, it's not her, it's her. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can believe that. Because you can't put all this on this girl's shoulders. It's just too much. So yeah, I really did love this book, and I can't wait for the next books to show up. And last but not least, I have A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas. This was just, it was so good. It's a very short novella, although it's quite, in Sarah's fashion, it's a very huge novella. I mean, heck, look at Tower of Dawn. That was supposed to be a novella, and it turned into, what, a 600-page book? But this, at least for Sarah, I can believe is a true novella. This is about 230 pages, and there's a little sneak peek for the next book in the back. This was kind of like fan fiction. Have you ever gotten to an end of a story and you want to know what happened, so you make up your own little story of what? That was pretty much this. It was knowing what happens after the war, how everybody's dealing with their trauma, their PTSD, and it's set during the winter solstice, so it's set during Christmas time. And this actually would have been very nice to read over Christmas. Why didn't I think of it? Yeah, this is after Christmas at this point, so it's gone. But I did read A Christmas Carol over Christmas, so I at least got one Christmas book in. But yeah, I know a lot of people were disappointed with this, but I really loved it. I knew it was going to be a short novella, because Sarah said this one was truly going to be a novella. So I think everybody's expectations might have just been set a little too high. They expected the normal awesomeness from a Sarah J Maas book. And I was just like, it's too short. There's no way she's going to be able to throw any huge plot into this one. It's probably going to be a very tiny plot, but there was really no plot in here at all. It was just light, fluffy goodness to see what our characters were doing after the war. And I loved it. Well, that is my top 10 books for the year of 2018, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!